to reduce disaster risks or impending disaster losses, which means that disaster risk reduction actually ranges from pre-disaster to post-disaster stages. So pre, during, and post-disaster stages. And as you know, that each of these stages involves a lot of activities, and they cannot be done by a lone organization. It requires the coming together of a multitude of organizations, a multitude of personnels. And this means that there has to be a coordination and a cooperation between these organizations and these personnels to carry out the tasks of DRR. We have the Disaster Management Act passed in 2005, and the DM Act does precisely this. It tries to integrate institutions. Not only does it create new bureaucratic institutions in the form of NDMA, SDMA, DDMA, NDRF, but it also tries to integrate these institutions at 3 levels, as well as try to integrate it with other stakeholders like NGOs. What we see with DM Act is an expanded bureaucracy. And why is the need for this expanded bureaucracy? Precisely because before DM Act came, it was more relief-centric rather than preventive approach. So now when we have a preventive approach, there is actually a paradigm shift from relief-centric to preventive approach, which means that we are actually moving towards specialization in the field of disasters. So in India, there is this new development of specialization in the field of disasters. So we have institutions coming up to teach disaster studies. We have new organizations to handle disasters per se. So we are moving towards specialization. Now, Durkheim said that division of labor, which comes with specialization, actually brings about organic solidarity. And we see that organic solidarity is solidarity which helps to bind disparate, specialized bodies together, right? And why so? So as to return things to normal. And as we heard in the morning, bringing things back to normal takes time. But how less time you can manage it in is called efficiency. Well, Durkheim did not talk about efficiency, but he definitely said that division of labor leads to organic solidarity, and this organic solidarity is represented by something called the restitutive law, and the purpose of the restitutive law is to make things go back to normal. And the DM Act is actually a restitutive law because the DM Act also tries to build back better, helps to mitigate in the process of integrating various branches, various organized, specialized branches. It is actually trying to bring back things to normalcy. So DM Act is also a kind of restitutive law. But there's a problem. The kind of organic solidarity Durkheim had imagined is not the same as we see in the field today. For my MPhil dissertation, I had done an empirical study, and from that study I realized that this integration is not much, in the sense that there is not much cooperation, not much coordination, which is why you have so many disasters. But Orissa was a well-managed disaster. Hudhud, a well-managed disaster. Next slide, please. We see, can you please keep rolling the slides, one after the other? As the audience can see, regular meetings are pretty high. Next slide, please. Common capacity trainings, low. Next slide. Consultative meetings, low. Next slide, please. Joint fieldwork, very low. Next slide. Paper exchange, very high. So you can say that if regular meetings are very high and paper exchange is very high, which means there is coordination and cooperation happening, but actually no. Because paper exchange is a very normal, mundane, day-to-day affair, right? It does not do much to bring about organic solidarity. And when regular meetings happen, it's actually meetings where there is display of power, rapport building between government officials, display of kind of wealth per ministry has at its disposal. So it's not actually bringing about organic solidarity. So this paper actually brings out the importance of organic solidarity if we have to have well-managed disasters like we have in Orissa and here in Andhra Pradesh. Thank you.
Thank you for making a very important presentation and highlighting the fact on the need for division of labor, specialization, and organic solidarity. This is a fact that was seen, and it was a trauma for all of us when we were in Nepal. There were teams from 28 nations reaching within 1 week, and almost 5,500 NGOs there to help you. And managing them, coordinating them was a real task that we saw during the Nepal earthquake. So it is a real nightmare for any administrator or any person who gets into this disaster. Now I would like to invite the next speaker, Mr. Aftab Ahmed, to make his presentation on managing the risk of mining disasters in India. Thank you.
Good afternoon. And good afternoon to the chair and to the august gathering of this house. I am basically a mining engineer working with the Ministry of Labor and Employment, Government of India as Inspectorate, Deputy Director of Mine Safety. And I am also connected with the rescue services provided by different coal companies and non-coal companies. So I have a presentation for you, what role mining sector is playing in this disaster management. In the historical perspective, accident and disasters have an overwhelming presence. Mining industry exploits mineral against the nature, disturbing the nature's equilibrium, and that is why there is a chance of an accident at any moment during mining operation. A well-defined and structured regime of hazard identification and control mechanism is the basic requirement of a disaster management, whether it is caused by nature or man-made. Next slide, please. Now, as you all know, United Nations has defined disaster. Now, I have a different angle to see what is disaster is. Basically, a religious man, I want to know the definition of disaster from the religious perspective. Disaster as per Kautilya Arthashastra, in Sanskrit the word Nipatra, Pidana, Apatti, Vipatti, and Vaishana are used for calamities. Vaisana means something which is caused by ill fate. In India, a systematic history of managing the disasters goes back to 4th century BC. In his Arthashastra, the complete compendium of the science of polity, Kaushalya, the great guru of science of polity, also famously known as Chanakya, has discussed this issue in a systematic manner. He has categorized calamities into two. One is the Daivam, that is natural, another is the Manusam, that is man-made. According to Kaushalya, there is no control over Daivam or the natural disasters, but for Manusavam, though misfortune is responsible for them, by misfortune or by wrong policies, this man-made disasters occurs. After mentioning them, he has warned the king that it has his duty to protect his people from these calamities. Now, disaster as per Quran. Quran says in his verse 65, Al-An'am, say he has power to send torment on you from above you, from below your feet, or to cover you with confusion in partly strife and make you to test the violence of one another. See how variously he explained the ayat, that is the proof, evidence, lessons, signs and revelations, so that they may understand. In another verse, in the chapter Al-Arafat, the God says, do the people of the town feel secure after coming of our wrath by night while they are asleep? Or else do they feel secure against its coming in broad daylight while they are playing. In another verses, do then those who deserve evil plots feel secure that Allah will not cause the earth to swallow them up, or that the wrath will not seize them for the direction they little perceive? Do you feel secure that we will not cause a side of the land to swallow upon, or that he will not send against you a violent storm? Then you shall find no wakil, guardian, one to guide you from the torment. Or do you feel secure that he will not send you back a second time to sea, and send against you a hurricane of wind, and drown you because of your disbelief, so that you find no helper against us? Mischief has appeared on land and sea, because of that the hands of man have earned, that Allah gives them a taste of some of his deeds, in order that they may turn back. So these are the all verses which defines what disaster is. And finally, the best description of environmental balance in the Quran is, and the earth we have spread out like a carpet, set thereon mountains firm and immovable, and produce therein all kinds of things in due balance. And we have provided therein means of subsistence for you, and for those whose subsistence you are not responsible, like moving living creatures, cattle, beasts, and other animals. And there is not a thing but with us are the stores thereof, and we only send down thereof in due and ascertained measures. This is in Al-Hijr. And verily all things have we created in proportions and measures. Do you mischief on the earth after it has set in order? So what these verses speaks all about? This speaks all about the balance which we have to maintain for our ultimate goal. Now, from a biblical prophecy, we can go to the Matthew chapter 14. Natural disaster will grow in frequency and intensity as the end of the age approaches, to shake people out of their complacency and lead them to seek them. Then natural disaster or an accident have something been the direct judgment of the God on a rebellious humanity. Some natural disasters are made worse by man's poor judgment and age, long rejection of God and his law, resulting in worsening environmental and climatic conditions. So from these definitions, we came to know that disasters in a common and also mining disasters are nothing but making imbalance in the Mother Earth. And what we are doing in mining is working against the nature and making the nature imbalance, and inviting disasters to come very now and then. Next slide, please. Now, what is mining disaster? In our statute, as per our statute, coal mine regulations, and the laws and orders framed thereunder, we define mining disasters as any accident involving more than 10 fatalities. US define this as any accident involving more than 5 fatalities. If 5 fatalities is there or more, then it is a disaster. And in our case, in Indian case, 10 or more fatalities are called mining disasters. So we have list of mining disasters, our last decades, and during the decades, various disasters are there. More than 2,000 disasters mining sectors have experienced. And these are the various cause-wise disasters, that is due to roof fall, due to inundation, due to explosion. These are the all disasters. Next slide, please. Next. Disaster in mining can be due to open cast mining and underground mining. Chances of disaster in underground mining is more as compared to open cast mine. Next slide, please. In open cast mines, these are the common causes of disasters. Next slide. In underground, the common causes are inundation of the working, explosion, fire, collapse of roof, overwinding. Next slide. Emergency management in mine required preparation and implementation of a duly framed emergency plan. And for that, three things are important, as you know, making all the concerned aware within the domain of the work frame, then developing a coordinated approach. And from the research which has come to know, we came to know that the three factors which are responsible for mining disasters are unsafe act, faulty attitude, and disregard for safety. Next slide, please. Managing the risk of mining disasters, we have, this is the important point which I want to stress upon. We have mines rescue rule, and we have more than 2,000 rescue trained personnels who are also called the emergency rescue experts. They are dealing with mining emergencies, but as and when required, they were called by civil societies also. They were called by state governments and other government departments also. So it is my earnest request to the Disaster Management Authority and other authorities that the services of these rescue trained personnel, these emergency experts, may be utilized for general causes of other than mining disasters. And if they are fully equipped and trained in that, they can deal with the other disasters like mining disasters. They have equipment, they have infrastructures, and these are some of the slides which I have taken from Singareni Collieries Company Limited, one of the government company working under this Telangana, and they are associated with disaster management people in mock drills. They have also done commendable works in civil societies, like in building collapse. They have power lifters, they have cutters. They are providing their services, so their services can be extended to the civil society also. Next slide. Next slide. These are all figures of Singareni people engaging in their services to general society as a whole. Next slide. Finally, I want to conclude, and my concluding remarks are: services of rescue stations, rooms, in their infrastructures, and expertise of highly trained emergency response specialists may be extended to other government departments, agencies, civil societies in tackling natural and man-made disasters. There is a established link between environmental wealth and man's behavior and action. The consumption and production process must be allowed for sustainable development by preserving resources from squandering. There is a need for equity in utilization of resources, the absence of which would rise to a society devoid of any sense of well-being or the much needed spiritual and social security. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aftab Ahmed, for a very interesting and unique presentation. In fact, calling upon spirituality and religion, and how disaster management and disasters have always been there from the times of the Bible and the Quran.
Okay, I am Venu Gopal. I am Senior Fire Officer of Indian Rare Earths Limited, Udyogapandal, Kochi. I'm not prepared for a presentation and all, but just I want to give some interest points in our country, in my state. That is Mr. Jacob Thomas, IPS. He was head of fire and rescue, Government of Kerala. Now he is DGP. He is transferred from that post to other. Just because of the reason that he insisted on certain safety aspects in building high-rise buildings regarding fire and safety. And the real estate mafia intervened and pressurized the political group. And ultimately what happened, this Jacob Thomas has been transferred from that fire and rescue head to some other unimportant area. So that is one. Now the other thing is, in the disaster management aspect, one thing is most important. So many are suffering in that disaster. But how we are giving importance to the people who are, who are victimized in that. I just want to give an example. Last year when Jhelum River was flooded in Srinagar, my wife was there, and she was stranded. And of course her group, my sister-in-laws and all, and we pressurized with our influence in the army service personnel and all, we somehow managed to rescue them. What about the others? And there in Jammu and Kashmir, so many people, so many locals made hue and cry, saying that they are not given equal opportunity when compared to the tourists over there. So these are some important things we should keep in mind when we are planning about disaster management and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your inputs. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This was a truly intriguing session where we had 20 presentations within the time frame of almost 2.5 hours. It was very interesting discourse, true to the nature of disasters and disaster management. We saw several with the multidisciplinary nature of disasters. From super specialization, we saw very highly technical presentations to the basics of disaster management. We had inputs from theory to practice. And what we feel and what I feel and would like to put forward is that disaster management day by day and with the knowledge and new contribution to the existing body of knowledge is getting more and more complex. But I've been a social scientist, a teacher and a professor of disaster management, and we feel that still the solution lies in having simple solutions to complex problems. How we can simplify things, because we do not have adequate number of experts. We have just concluded a nationwide capacity building, capacity needs assessment study for the World Bank and NDMA India, and found out that there is a huge need of upscaling. Most of these tasks and challenges that we have been deliberating upon since morning is due to the issues of one, lack of capacity, lack of upscaling. And that is why we call upon, and that is why we cherish leaders like Professor Amita Singh and others from JNU, the effort that has been started towards youth leadership. And how do you educate? How do you build capacities? How do you upscale? The second challenge that we find in disaster management is disaster financing. In our study, it came that only in order to make our schools disaster resilient, an investment of $80.2 billion is required. $80.2 billion. And the way we are progressing, it would take about 545 years for India to make all its schools disaster resilient. We have 14 lakh schools in India. In 3 years, with all our might, we could cover only 8,600 schools. So what is required in disaster management is behavior change. How we can make disaster management a part of our day-to-day life. Implementation of existing capacities, policies. I've been working in this field, and we are the policy and advocacy and the strategic management level. We find that India and South Asia is one of the best and the finest places on the earth when it comes to policy making and when it comes to devising roadmaps, coming up with studies. But implementation is a real challenge. And next is capacity. So we call upon you. I guess we can call off a day, and we would like to carry on this session for the next day, and people who have missed, we will try and accommodate them on day 3. And you can contact the organizers. So thank you everybody for this very enlightening day. Open sessions have always been very enlightening and intriguing and very challenging. Thank you all, and you are all welcome at 1900 hours for the cultural programs.